All right, good to go. Great. Ani, bonjour. Good evening. Kwekwe, wache. Gichinendam, gibijaya dangwa. We're very, very happy to see you here this evening and to welcome you. On est particulièrement heureux de vous accueillir en cette journée des Franco-Ontariens et Franco-Ontariennes ici. Alors, bienvenue à l'École d'architecture, bienvenue à l'Université Laurentienne. I want to begin by acknowledging that our university, including this beautiful School of Architecture, is built on the traditional territory of the Atikameksing, Anishinaabeg, and Wanapitei First Nations, et aussi sur les lieux d'une communauté vibrante métisse. It's also part of the Robinson-Huron Treaty. It's very important for us at Laurentian University because of the importance that we place on our work in reconciliation, that we always recognize and express our gratitude for our access to this traditional Indigenous territory. Alors, au nom de l'Université Laurentienne, je vous souhaite la bienvenue, tous et toutes, ce soir. It's a great pleasure for me all to welcome you all here. Now, we've gathered here this evening as part of an annual lecture series celebrating the sustainable economic development of our region. Le développement durable de notre collectivité est évidemment une priorité pour nous à la Laurentienne. This lecture is made possible by the generous support of Peter Goring, a past member of the Laurentian University Board of Governors, and we're very, very happy to have also his sister Jane Young here with us this evening. So thank you both for coming. So the Goring Family Lecture always focuses on economic development in the North, and this year our focus is the film industry, which, as you know, is really a thriving sector here in Northern Ontario and in Sudbury. So those of us from the North have always known about the advantages of being here and working here. And now the film industry in the last years has caught on as well. And we've seen this growing activity in filmmaking here in the region. So much so, in fact, that over the past 6 years, 89 films or TV series have been filmed here in the city. Alors, le Nord nous offre vraiment des occasions sans pareilles pour ce genre de production de cinéma. What you may not know is that the filming opportunities that have been created have generated about $90 million for the local economy over that same 6-year period. And in addition, about 56% of the crew jobs that are created in this industry are for people from this region. So when you talk about sustainable economic development, that's a great example of it. And I think that's certainly something worth celebrating. So I've been speaking a little bit about economic impact. I'm going to pause at this point so that we can watch a short video about economic impact, and then I'll come back and introduce our moderator for the evening. Bill?
One of our most exciting sectors that continues to evolve is our film and television industry. We're quickly becoming the filming destination of the North. In 2017, 18 film, television, and web series were filmed in Sudbury, which contributed $18 million in local spending. The industry employed 2,543 people, and that's a 20% increase over last year.
So 5 years ago was the first time I came out to Sudbury. I had a feature film called Cast and Joan, starring Richard Dreyfuss, Tatiana Maslany from Love and Black, directed by Jason Priestley from Beverly Hills. That was one that was his first movie as a director. We were looking around Ontario. We wanted to shoot in Ontario for financial reasons and trying to see, okay, what's got some flatlands that we can mimic kind of middle Canada. It's got a little bit of hills kind of thing, so with a little bit of help of VFX, we can make it look a little bit more mountainous regions. And we thought Sudbury was perfect. On top of that, there was financial benefits with the regional tax credit and also the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, so it was kind of a match made in heaven. I mean, the benefits of shooting in Sudbury, Northern Ontario, where do I begin? The crews are fantastic. The landscape is diverse. The terrain is beautiful, and people are great. You know, when I first started coming up, there was a big mystery of what's happening up in Sudbury, what's happening in Northern Ontario with this industry. There's a lot of skepticism, and I think we've opened up the door and let people know that it's real, it's legit, it's happening. It's happening right under our nose, not far away, and life's pretty awesome.
Now, I have the distinct honor of presenting this evening's moderator, an individual who's made a significant contribution to the film industry and to the growth of this sector in our region. He's a graduate of CFC's Producers Lab, the Berlinale Talent Campus, and the Schulich School of Business. He was named Playback's Top 10 to Watch in 2012 and the Hollywood Reporter's Next Generation Under 35 in 2014. This individual produces the multiple Canadian Screen Award-winning Crave TV original comedy series Letterkenny and What Would Sal Do? He also produces City TV's flagship original drama series, Bad Blood, and produced the Whistler Film Fest and Toronto Film Festival Film Circuit Audience Choice winning feature film, Cass and Dylan. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, please help me to welcome to the stage the president and executive producer of New Metric Media, Mark Montefiore. Mark?
Thank you, Pierre. I didn't know that video was going to be up there, so I really don't have much left to say. So I'm just going to go home now. I've been here since 2012. Cass and Dylan was the first one, as you saw in the video, so I won't reiterate a lot of that stuff. But I've been lucky enough to see the industry grow tremendously from my first time producing up here and having less than half the crew be locals and North Sudbury locals, first of all, but Northern Ontario locals as well. And seeing that now, how it's grown over the last 6 years to be much more locally focused. We do make an effort of that in New Metric Media, and I have a little video to play. That's not me, thankfully, this time. I don't know if there's a video lined up, if we can play that. Just give a little familiarity with New Metric Media.
Once I graduated back in 2015, my first job out of school was on season 1 of Letterkenny. Over the last 2.5 years, I've worked my way up in the assistant director's department, and as of season 3 of Letterkenny, New Metric took a chance on me and allowed me to jump into the role of second assistant director.
Well, it was actually Letterkenny season 2 last year, where I did my very first role as assistant coordinator. I knew that I was able to do it because I had New Metric support.
I would say the New Metric shows that we did help me grow. I went from a PA to third.
One day I got a call from Mark Montefiore, and he told me that he was going to send me to Toronto for some training with Louis K. Casting. And from there I was able to have training from them through the NMHFC as well. And they've been a constant in helping me throughout this whole past year in casting, so that was amazing.
It was really cool to just have people who were genuinely interested in training me, so that was a really good experience.
So I grew up in Northern Ontario originally. Moved to Toronto when I was 22. I worked for 12 years, worked out from being a PA to a production executive. And then when I saw Mark was making great content and doing it in Sudbury, I knew I wanted to be part of it. So I moved back here a year ago.
I eventually moved into sets and props and became a prop master about 6.5 years ago. I ended up prop mastering the first season of Letterkenny, and then when season 2 rolled around, they asked me to become the production designer.
Here, until 6 months ago, I was a minor, and I got to play across from Anthony. That was something to me that should have happened that early in my career, but it was great.
Mark and New Metric have just given me my shot, and it's been just such a blessing to have that kind of support backing you and belief and the faith in me that I could do it.
To tell you the truth, I owe everything to New Metric. This is 3 productions now I've been in with New Metric.
When I first started, there were maybe 2 or 3 people from Northern Ontario who actually had film experience, and the rest of us were just
all learning from nothing, basically. You know, we have people in key positions now. As an assistant director, this is the first show I'm on where I actually have the full Northern AK team, which is great.
My entire crew is Northern. So I have myself, I have 2 full-time assistants who are both local to Sudbury, and then we hire daily, so up to 5-man crew.
My art department, Ruby and Danny, who are Northerners. In my sets department, we have Louise, Cam, Bobby, Maggie, and a bunch of Davids, who are all Northern. My props department is LA and Dustin. They hire a couple Davids. They're all Northerners.
Entire departments are Northern, and that's a really great thing.
Having done a full year of Letterkenny, I can see how the crews have grown.
We have keys doing leaders and seconds and best forwards and all that kind of stuff, so we're really growing the industry in the North.
Now that I am where I am, I do my best to source out all Northern crew, and it's great, you know.
If it weren't for the NOHFC, I don't believe that I would even live here, let alone have a career here.
The Northern Ontario Heritage Fund kind of helped kickstart the next phase of my career.
I never thought that I would be able to, that any of this would be in Sudbury. I grew up here and it was a mining town. And the fact that I've been able to build a resume like I have here in my hometown is just beyond words.
This program has really helped build my career and training a lot of Northerners as well, so we're building more crew up here as more productions come.
It's bigger and bigger productions. I mean, we've got a lot of good things going on up here.
I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to have my company here because of this Heritage Fund.
It's probably one of the greatest things that's really happened up here. It's created such a huge industry. All the people I talked about, all the people who work under me, these are people with careers up here. They're not just grabbing a bit of work here and there. This is what we do for a living. Hundreds of us just working in the North in an industry we love that has tons of economic spin-off for our communities.
The shows that we make have really trickled down to all areas of the North, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Metric reached out to us last spring and said that I wanted to start a dialogue about producing the beer that we see on the show covers, for them to reach out to us, a local Sudbury business. We're honored by that, and they're trying to promote Sudbury, the North. We are as well, so kind of it lines up. There's a synergy that way.
I actually just recently bought a home, so looking to settle and make it work here if I can.
Sudbury, we are in the place to be right now with film production.
So that's what we've been up to for the last 6 years or so up here, and we can't do that without everybody here. It's been a great time. We've definitely been growing, that's for sure, and so is the industry as a whole, which has been very exciting. There's a lot of production happening, and when I first came up, you could have the pick of the litter of the crew, and now there's 4 or 5 productions happening at the same time. So the competition level of who's available and training opportunities to get new people in the industry at all different levels and different trades and whatnot too. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, no matter if you're an administrative person or a technical person or whatever it is. So we're excited about that. We're excited to see where things head. So we've got a great panel here. So I want to get that going. So let me start by making some introductions. One second here. So let's see if this works. Okay. Amy DiMatteo, Director General, Federal Economic Development Initiative in Northern Ontario, FedNor. Born in Sudbury and raised in Coniston. Amy started his career with the federal government in 1973. In 1978, he transferred to the province of Ontario to work with the Ministry of Northern Affairs. Since that time, he has worked in a number of positions promoting and delivering economic development activities throughout Northern Ontario. I'm going to skip ahead here. There's so much great stuff, so we can introduce everybody. On 2010, Amy accepted a new challenge and was appointed Director General of FedNor. the Federal Economic Development Initiative of Northern Ontario. His primary role is to ensure that FedNor delivers on its mandate to create economic growth, diversification, job creation, sustainable communities in Northern Ontario. So let's welcome him here.
Thank you.
So, Amy, do you want to talk about FedNor and what you're up to there?
Yeah,
And then
well,
we'll introduce everybody else.
Whatever your pleasures. Let me.
I have. What can I do? What am I allowed to do, Melanie? Yeah. Okay. Let's do that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a bit of a history lesson. So I'm going to start, and I was really pleased to hear talk about the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, because prior to being at FedNor in 2010, as you pointed out, the previous 32 years of my career were with the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, and 8 of those last years were spent, in fact, taking care of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation. So I was the executive director. And I say that because from a history perspective, the film industry in Northern Ontario started off with a discussion between myself and the then chair and minister of Northern Development and Mines, Rick Bartolucci, MPP from Sudbury. And I honestly forget how the discussion started, but we both got on to, film industry and, geez, is there something that we could do in Northern Ontario? And that was, I'm going to say, 14 years ago that we started having this discussion. And we started from, I don't mean it disrespectfully, from ground zero. Music and Film in Motion was here, and Cinefest and other things were already here, but there really wasn't a program and a thrust by the provincial government of the day to talk about taking a chance on developing an industry, unlike our traditional industry like forestry, mining, tourism, agriculture. So something very different and unique. And so it was way back then when we said, let's take a shot at it. And so we started putting some money together. And NHFC at that time, I had the pleasure of operating a $100 million fund annually. And the board of directors of the corporation agreed that this was something that we should do. So we started funding film projects. So the Media Development Corporation out of Southern Ontario, we talked to them, and if people want to come north, we'll give them a 5% extra tax credit. We said, no, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be meaningful, and if we're going to do it, go big or go home. And so we started providing incentive loans to film companies to come and start producing films in Northern Ontario. And in the early days, those companies would show up with all of their crews, with all of their lighting, with everything. And the only thing that they left behind at that point in time was the money that they spent for accommodation and food services. And so we said, okay, well, we accept that. That's a starting point. And we always said, and I heard in some of the discussion about crews. And so we need to develop the expertise and develop the crews in Northern Ontario. And so get to the value added as much as we could. And so, one year after another, we just kept funding these opportunities. We started seeing development of individuals from Northern Ontario, as we just saw in that media clip, coming back home or wanting to be home or wanting to grow their career in Northern Ontario. And so that's how this industry started off, just with a simple conversation with a gentleman who I would suggest to you, maybe if there's ever going to be any Northern Ontario Oscars, maybe the first Oscar should go to Rick Bartolucci, because without his approval, we wouldn't be having this discussion here today, in all probability.
Can I ask, what was the allocation of $100 million then towards film and television?
There was we didn't provide any notional allocations to any of the activities. We just based it on available funding and bring us a good project and we'll fund it.
Was there a long-term vision as far as a timeline to when, how many years did you project out that this was going to start reaping some rewards?
You know what, we really didn't, because we knew very little of the industry. And so we said, we're going to take a shot at it and we'll just see how it builds year after year after year. And to our surprise, I will say to a certain extent, it kept growing. And so each year it got better. Each year we started hearing that companies were coming with less of their own crews. We had companies that ultimately then started looking at, I could be a lighting company. And so, talking to one of my colleague panelists about the company that he represents. And so it was a company established in Northern Ontario to service Northern Ontario. And so we started seeing those kinds of benefits. And so we said, okay, beside that, what else do we need to do? We need to build what I'll call the infrastructure, the capacity. And so that was when I moved over to FedNor in 2010. I didn't have the same kind of luxury of a program that I had with the province. So we started looking at what do we need to do to build the capacity so that we can ensure that the industry continues to grow. And so that capacity consisted of training, providing infrastructure to communities who needed infrastructure to continue to attract companies to come and shoot films in Northern Ontario. And that ecosystem has continued to evolve, and it's getting stronger and stronger. We did a post-production facility in North Bay, which we were talking about earlier. A couple of the companies have just recently used, and it's a state-of-the-art.
So this is now FedNor, though, no longer NOHFC.
This is now at FedNor in 2010. Okay. And so FedNor is focused on building that capacity and ensuring that communities have all of the right attributes, the right capacity, the right infrastructure, including training. So, we talk about crews and the importance of having local people and growing the industry for Northerners by Northerners. So it was in one project that I'll cite in 2014, thereabouts, we gave $500,000 or $600,000 to Scion, which is now, Scion used to be called Music and Film in Motion, to help support its operations. Again, you got to support these operations if you're going to try to be successful in the future. But also importantly is they started to provide training opportunities for Northern Ontario kids in the media arts production so they could become crew members.
So would you say predominantly with FedNor, the funding is going towards training initiatives?
Training initiatives, infrastructure in communities, supporting Scion. So Cinefest, we've supported Cinefest in the past in terms of marketing and letting the world know that Northern Ontario is open for business. We've got a great capacity when it comes to this industry. And what more do we need to do to ensure that not only Sudbury, and I know the stats that we're talking about, related to Sudbury, but this industry is flourishing in Thunder Bay, in North Bay, in Sault Ste. Marie, to a certain extent, a little lesser extent in Timmins, and other jurisdictions. And so it continues to grow. And just Pierre stole some of my stats. Thank you very much. But let me talk about North Bay then, as an example. Just in terms of their filming days, from 2016 to 2017 have doubled from 127 to 268 filming days. Direct spending rose to $22.7 million from $8.9 million in 2016. So massive increase, very impressive, and related to having the right crews, having the right incentives, having the right infrastructure in place.
Okay, can I ask, and sorry, I should have set up the bet. If anybody's got any questions, just blurt them out anytime, and we'll do our best to ignore you. Just for people who aren't familiar with FedNor and how the funding actually works. So from my understanding, productions themselves are not eligible for funding from FedNor, but the corporate entity can. So for instance, a production like Letterkenny is not eligible for funding, but New Metric Media, should we have leasehold improvements or growth opportunities? Maybe you can explain a little bit like that for people in the audience
Sure.
Who may not realize they're eligible for certain funding in different initiatives that they're doing.
Absolutely. So the films themselves aren't eligible, and the NHFC is there and still doing that. And so there's no use FedNor taking its limited dollars and just duplicating what the provincial program is already doing. So we're focusing on how do we build then on the other parts. So if it's New Metric Media. New Metric Media.
It's okay, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah. So if they wanted to establish an operation, an office in Northern Ontario and start hiring people and providing more of the services that it does out of Northern Ontario as opposed to in any other jurisdiction outside of the North, we would say that's business growth and development. We'd like to support that. And so whether it is for equipment, leasehold improvements, in some cases might even include building purchase. So those are the kinds of things that we look to do and create more and more businesses, post-production facilities, editing, business opportunities should they arise. We would be very interested in looking at those.
So what's an area that you feel is, or the fund is starting to feel that's a bit saturated now, and also the opposite of that, any areas of growth that aren't being satisfied that you're looking to satisfy?
Yeah, I'd find it just reverse. We're nowhere near saturation. I mean, the growth potential is still amazing. And I just got the some stats from Cinefest this year. 17 of the films that were seen at Cinefest this year were shot in Northern Ontario. 17 that made that, made the cut.
That's a record year, right?
It is a record year. Yeah. And so it's just, growth is, we'll just continue doing it. So the saturation point, we're not worried about it.
I guess I should clarify more specifically, is there a certain area of the industry that, for instance, we have a lot of applications in for post-production. I do realize that post-production is an area that does need support here, so that's an area of support. But is there a lot of areas that, we're covered in this area now? Is there any area that's starting to feel a little more comfortable in?
No, not right now. But we always look at impact of competition, right? So I can't help company ABC if it's going to take away from another company, in the same jurisdiction. But if we're doing post-production work in North Bay and somebody says, we're doing a lot of business in Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie, and we think that there's value in having a facility there, we would certainly look at it and saying, it's bigger than just one company in one location.
Right.
And so we're looking to continue to diversify in those regards.
Okay, I'm going to go to our next panelist here, make the introduction, and then we're going to come back. We're going to open it up to everybody all together. So let me cue up the music, if you don't mind. I'm not tech savvy enough to be able to pick a different song, so almost there. All right, here we have Dr. Shirley Chichu, Executive and Artistic Director. Dr. Shirley Chichu is an award-winning filmmaker, director, writer, actor, and visual artist. She is a master storyteller at heart, writing scripts, plays, film, and television dramas that search for significance. She creates films that are both poignant and transformative. She takes great care in her work because good stories take time and patience. Her groundbreaking actions have made one of Canada's most well-known and respected artists. Her patronage to the arts doesn't stop there. She is co-owner of Kashish. Is that how you pronounce it? Kashish? Should have asked earlier, apologies. Studios Art Gallery with her husband, Blake Debassier, promoting Aboriginal artists. She is also the president of Spoken Song Film Production Company and founded the, oh dear, how do I say this?
Wingushk Film Institute.
Sorry?
Wingushk.
Film Institute on Manitoulin Island that trains, develops, and guides independent filmmakers. In 2018, Shirley was appointed Chancellor of Brock University, my hometown, St. Catharines, for a second term. Welcome, Dr. Shirley Chichu.
I have to write my speech because I think in my language, and in one word in my language could mean 10 things in English. I would like to acknowledge first the traditional territories that I am standing on. I am honored to speak with you today. Many years ago, I was rescued from the harsh streets of Toronto by someone who saw my humanity and took time to mentor me. He gave me a second chance and also opened the door to a new world, the world of the arts. The arts helped me to look within and confront the many demons that stole my soul. I am a residential school warrior. I do not see myself as a survivor because I believe I live in this experience every day. So I fight with it every minute of my life. The arts allowed me to find myself as a human being and also let me go, and also to let go of my self-destructive habits. Arts allowed me to find my voice and a purpose as a Cree woman who was raised on the land. Arts gave me a platform to share my experience and to let Canadians know more about my people and what we have had to overcome and continue to overcome. Arts allowed me to build the self-confidence that has taken me on a journey that has held me to the hallowed halls of a higher education in the role of Chancellor of Brock University. If art did that for me, I knew that it would do the same for marginalized, Indigenous, and young people of diversity who do not fit into the mainstream artistic or educational system. Some 15 years ago, I was inspired after having 27 youth work on my first feature film to create and launch Wingash Film Institute, a safe place for Indigenous youth and young people of diversity to study, a space that is respected of their culture and their needs. Since its launch, the training delivered by Wingash Film Institute has transformed the lives of over 500 youth from across Canada. Their communities, as well as the mainstream educational system, have failed many of our young people. Some of them who arrived at our door were so damaged that they could not look into the face of their fellow students or their instructors. With the mentorship and care that is delivered at the space that is WFI, Wingash Film Institute, these students have grown and come into their own. They have found their voices. They have unleashed their creativity through the stories they tell in their short films. They have also developed skills in the areas of teamwork, leadership, time management, business skills, life skills, creative writing, public speaking, and the technical requirements of filmmaking. Every student who chooses to study at WFI is valued. WFI clears the path so that they can discover their talents and move forward in their lives so that they can meaningfully contribute to their communities. A complete stranger did the same for me. And now it's my turn to do the same for the next generation of Indigenous and people of diversity creators. As a female and as an Indigenous woman, writer, director, the challenges I face are more than any race out there in this industry. I did not want to believe that this is true here in the North, but it's even worse. I have been making films since 1997, and not once did anyone from here in the North or productions coming from the South ask me to direct a film or television that was greenlit. I have had many of them pick my brain, story edit in the pretense that I would be directing the film. So I read the script, and if I am interested, I put my heart and soul out there to make it a good story to tell. But once that money comes in, all of a sudden I am not good enough. I can't be allowed to direct something that is $2 million because I haven't directed one with that size budget. This is shameful. True females are being discriminated in this business. The way to really affect change is to totally overthrow the system. Funders need to stress that women be hired in departments where you rarely see women, especially in the departments of camera, grip, and electrics. If money is coming from the North, they should have it in their guidelines that opportunities be given to women. Women should be given a chance, especially if they have been part of the development of a project. Then there are our male counterparts, where they direct one indie film, and then they are off directing Jurassic World and many big budget films. You just do not You just do not see women having the same opportunities or having the amount of risk put on them. I've been making films for the past 19 years, and I only see male directors given that leap of faith. Many women have been making films on their own for decades. Let's make a change here in the North. Let's embrace our women filmmakers. Let's explore stories through the eyes of women whose perspective immerse both men and women alike. I also want to tell the story about my first film festival that I did on Manitoulin Island this past summer. I had a committee of 25 people, and these 25 people started to leave the committee telling us that it was impossible to have a film festival on Manitoulin Island. You can't do it. It can't happen. It ended up with only 4 of us left. We made that film festival, and we made $20,000 with that festival. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley, for that. That was amazing to hear. So with that conversation in mind, or one of the conversations you touch on, the Canadian Media Fund, one of many organizations now that fund television projects in Canada, recently has, I'm not sure if it's a mandate or if it's an incentive, but to have Canadian Media Fund funded projects reach a minimum of 40% of the above the line talent, which means directors, writers, producers, be female. And on season 2 of Bad Blood, we're happy that we did achieve that, which was a drastic change from season 1, which was probably a good 80% male. So we did make significant changes to that, and do believe that most of the funds, not all the funds, but most of the funds are making efforts to achieve this and mandate it, which is important. And there's a lot of people trying to make this happen and try and write many things over the years that have not given these opportunities. On Bad Blood, we did have, we were excited by a director named Molly McGlynn, who had never directed a TV drama series before or episodic television. She'd done a half-hour comedy and an indie feature film. And she came on and directed 2 episodes of Bad Blood, and she knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. But this is something that admittedly, even a year ago, probably would have been a very difficult decision for a lot of people to make and support. But with all the conversations that have been happening of late, thanks to many people, but people like Shirley having these conversations, speaking about it, it's making change happen. So thank you for that. So if you can tell us a little bit about the organization on Manitoulin, and what that means for filmmakers and younger filmmakers, and what the opportunities are that they do have.
Wingash Film Institute is a program that I started up. It's Lab 1, which is a short film program, and Lab 2 is a television program. It's a first of its kind that was developed by Aboriginal person. The curriculum that I developed there is huge, because the students that come there don't necessarily have to have a high school diploma, and they become university students. And so the students that actually go through the program we're using film as a tool to teach a lot of the youth how to read, write, do math, business, all kinds of different skills that you need actually to make film. And when these youth come there, they don't realize that they are being trained in these areas, because they think they're just coming there to make a film. So we've had a lot of kids that don't have any reading skills. When they leave, they all know how to read, because we all have to read our scripts, and I make everybody read a script to the class. And so they learn all these skills, and what they do, and then they make their films, and they all work in each other's films in different areas. So when they leave the school, they have a resume already of 8 films. you know, and also they also have a calling card that they can say, I made a film. So when they go into the industry, they'll already have a resume that can put them right into the job placements in Sudbury, North Bay, Thunder Bay, and even out in Winnipeg, because that's where some of my students come from, in Alberta. So they get off welfare, they get off drugs and alcohol, and they get jobs as they leave Wingash Film Institute. Over 80% of our graduates are actually working in the industry.
That's amazing. Can I ask, how is this program funded?
The program is basically funded by donors, foundations. There's many foundations that are really supportive of the program. It's very hard for me to get funding from the government, and it's very hard for me to get funding from our bands as well to fund these kids. So every year I have to raise at least $100,000 of bursary so I can get 10 students into the school.
Can I ask why is it difficult to get funding from the government? What's the stumbling block there?
Aboriginal at-risk kids.
Is this, not to put you on the spot, Amy, but is this a type of program that you see these kinds of programs apply at FedNor?
Most definitely. I think Shirley will acknowledge that FedNor did a project with Wingush.
With internships.
With internships, yeah. And so, you know, we're always open to looking at opportunities and ensuring that, you know, a facility of this nature that is providing such important work for Indigenous, young Indigenous youth has the support it needs.
And Shirley, can you explain, maybe you did, but I missed it, what's the average age or what's the parameters of age of the students?
17 to 56.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is the, what's the criteria for application or to be able to?
They have to write an essay.
Okay.
Yeah, but most of the essays that come in, they don't know how to write. But we kind of interview them by phone, and if the passion is there and the commitment is there, we accept them into the program.
That's amazing. And what kind of commitment is it?
An 8-month program.
8 months, full time?
Yeah. The lab 1 is 8 months, yeah, full time, and the lab 2 is 10 months. Last year, our lab 2 students, there was 3 of them in there. They wrote a TV series that was picked up by Shaftesbury Films, one of the biggest production companies in Canada.
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They produce Murdoch Mysteries,
Yeah.
and Slasher, which is season 1 was shot up here as well.
The producer that came there was pitched the series, and he really loved it, and he took it to Shaftesbury.
So that's really interesting. So what's the connection then from the program to the industry? Are producers being invited to come up, or the students going to pitch? Or
Yeah,
what's the link?
You're going to come up on October 9th, and they're going to pitch you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Thank you for making the commitment.
There you go. Yes, that's what happens here, right? I've actually never been to Manitoulin. I've always wanted to go.
Well, there you go.
So how long has the program been going for?
How long has it been going for? Since 2009.
2009. And how many students have gone through it?
We only can take 10 students because we don't have the facility.
Right.
But we are working with Amy here for a new facility.
That's amazing.
And of course, we're going to use the whites here too.
That's great. Well, does the program have its own equipment, or are you renting it out from different
Well, every
houses?
time an instructor comes up there and he said, wow, you guys got really good equipment here. So we do have good equipment.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you been seeing, what's the retention as far as the students staying within the industry after the program, like on average? Are a lot of them sticking it out?
Yeah, well, like I said, 80% of them are working in the industry.
Right.
Maybe about 5% start up their own production, wherever they come from. And about 5% decide I'm not a filmmaker and they go back to school, which is really an accomplishment because they don't have any great college education.
That kind of ratio is unbelievable. I mean, when
Yeah.
I went to college, it was 300 kids and there's about 3 of us working in the industry now. So that ratio of the vast majority sticking it out, that's quite impressive. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's introduce our next guest. Oh, yes.
I made some money over here just walking by some ladies over here. Thank you very much.
I walked by those ladies. I didn't make any money. Hello. All right. Okay. Stand by, folks. Here we go. Let's cue up the DJ. Getting there. There we go. You're going to be so sick of this song by the end of this night. I don't even know if you guys can hear it at the back, but it's awesome if you can't. Okay, next panelist here. We have Josh Desmoreau, Operations Manager at William F. White International, which is an equipment house here in Sudbury. Josh was born and raised in Sudbury. Josh has always had an interest in film and attended film school at Confederation College in Thunder Bay. Shortly after completing his college studies, he attended Lakehead University. In 2011, Josh made the big decision to move to Toronto to pursue a career in film. He started by volunteering his time with White's Toronto. After a month of hard work and perseverance, he was finally offered a full-time position. Emphasize the word finally offered full-time position, thanks Whites, with their team at the lighting and grip floor worker, then was promoted to repair technician. During his time in Toronto, he also had the opportunity to work for NABET, which is a labor union, and IATSE 873, also a labor union, where he worked on and directed various projects. After a few years of working in Toronto, Josh returned home to Sudbury. White's Toronto at the time was looking to open a Sudbury location and turned to Josh to take the lead. Additionally, Josh shoots and creates films with Midnight Society Productions. Welcome, Josh.
All right. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet everyone, see everyone. Whoa, that came out of nowhere. That's awesome. Yeah, just to give an example, I know Mark kind of gave a full rundown, but being born and raised here and seeing where the film industry was when I was a kid and even a teenager, well, I didn't stay here. I ended up going to Thunder Bay, but even there, the film industry really wasn't booming. After I got out of film school, there's nothing to really go. So going down south, that was really the only option. And I mean, about 8 years later, we're at a booming film industry. But from coming from Toronto and working for William F. White Toronto down there, I mean, you would see the busyness. Then it was one of the bustle capitals and the Hollywood North, or Hollywood down south, pretty much. But when I eventually migrated up here, back to Sudbury, I noticed that, okay, there is actually a little bit of a film industry. At that time, we had a few shows, Hard Rock Medical and Blur de Ramville, not the largest scale of productions. And at the point, we didn't even have an equipment house, which is why we brought William F. White to Sudbury. Didn't think, and my boss has actually told me, this is a pilot project. I don't even imagine it could even stay open more than 3 years. Don't place all your bets on this. We're just seeing if the industry will grow. And we're going on 4 years open, and we have never been stronger in this busy industry that we've had. We've been very fortunate to have that, but that is something that all the people, actually here's an example. Today I was actually just having a phone call with every representative from every location, from Vancouver to the east coast of Halifax. And we are one of the busiest consistently throughout Canada. So I want to take that as a good sign that we're doing some really good business, but we're also building a strong industry up here. When I have all these technicians coming and working down here, and they're shocked that we have this kind of infrastructure building, and to have that opportunity that we've done with bringing the equipment and that side of the film industry to Sudbury, it's kind of blown up with how all the television and film productions have had the opportunity to access all the gear, to have the opportunity to access all this high-tech gear and use the top lights that we're using, all the top equipment that's heading on all the bigger Hollywood productions down south or in Vancouver. We have the same exact access. And what I've seen is all the products that have come from the north, they're just a lot more polished. You see it that we can shoot from even the smallest independent features using some of the top gear that you would use on the largest Netflix show in Toronto. I'm seeing that we're able to support the independent filmmakers to the larger scale productions, and we're doing that all from the north. We're doing that right from central of Sudbury. We're helping out North Bay, we're helping out the Sioux, we're helping out Thunder Bay, and we're doing it right from the heart of the north. And for me, that's been one of the greatest experiences. You had mentioned Cinefest, and having the chance to attend all of Cinefest's events, we had 7 productions that were filmed with our gear, and that was out of 17. So that's just shocking. It's amazing how much we've seen the industry grow. And for us, when we first started, we supplied 4 productions the first year. The next year we were at 15. The next year after that, we were at 25. We have grown immensely, and to see it through the set, see how many crew members have come here, it's been fantastic. I saw a lot of East Coast crew members when the East Coast had their tax credit go. A lot of them did migrate here in Toronto, and we've been very fortunate to have that community with this.
Josh, I really want to know, are you still friends with the person that convinced you that Thunder Bay had a bigger industry up there?
Somehow, yes, we're still friends, but the fact is, Thunder Bay at the time, the film school was a little more developed, not like what it is now for Canadore. I'm sure I would have went to Canadore or Laurentian University now, and I probably wouldn't have traveled 18 hours up north. But for me, that was the only option I had. I was hungry, I wanted to work in the film industry, and now I'm seeing this, I'm like, oh, it was here all along.
You're here now, that's what's most important.
The hometown really grew up, so it's been awesome.
What are you seeing with from White? So this is really interesting. So far, what we have on the panel, just to bring it back again. So we have Amy with Fednor, who's the money. He's the money guy. He's investing into the various companies to help stimulate the industry. We have Shirley, who's on the art side and stimulating and the investing and fostering the talent. To grow that talent pool and give options and opportunities on that side. Then we have Josh, who's on the service side, who's providing the infrastructure and the supports to the productions that are happening here. And Dawn, will get to Dawn, but Dawn is the executioner as a director who pulls all these things together and makes the show happen as a director on the floor. We'll get to Dawn momentarily. So Josh, what are you seeing from your perspective as supplying equipment to productions? Where are you seeing the growth happening right now, geographically, but also genre-wise? And I don't mean genre as in horror or comedy or drama. I mean genres in as far as the medium sense. Like, is it more feature films, is it television, documentary? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, for sure. And what the climate is. Right now, we have seen more of an influx in the television production. I think the television sector is really strong here. We have supplied more of the independent feature films, but the larger scale, larger budgeted feature films have yet to make their way up north, at least with the productions we've supplied. So our main bread and butter has come through the Letterkennys, has come through the Cardinal, the Bad Bloods, what would Sal do? And that's been really what's carried us, is having that strong television support, that strong television sector here, which I can't be more than happy enough.
If I can add on the TV side, what's interesting about television, what's a little different than feature film or documentary, what television brings is the returnability. And from a business standpoint and economic impact, it's a little longer than a feature film. So the production time, the budgets can be similar to a feature film. They may or may not be more or less, but the potential to return for 4, 5, and 6 seasons. Letterkenny's now going into, we are shooting, it's a little confusing because the way it aired was different, but we're shooting season 4. There's been 5 seasons that have been broadcast. It's confusing, but we have 6 seasons committed over 4 years. So that's a returnable business that ends up, once the wheel is built, it can the return on investment as far as funding and as far as infrastructure and all that kind of thing. That's how companies grow. And feature film provides an entirely different kind of economic benefit and ability to grow businesses as well too. Same with documentaries, but TV's got a little unique opportunity with as well. So it's great to see that the funds, all the various funds, Northern Ontario Heritage Fund is investing more in television series as well too. Yes, sure.
I wanted to ask you, like, does White's have a package for young filmmakers that can afford?
Yes, actually, we do develop on students. We've actually handed out grants immensely, and what we would like to do is build more of that up north, is just kind of have more of a presence, because our main goal, yes, we obviously love to support the television production and the feature films, but it's the student market that we find is kind of what we want to push for, because that's where the locals are, keeping the locals local and also showing we're also here to support you. We want to see these films be made. We're not all about just the money. We're all about supporting you, making sure you guys are getting a good product. And if we can help with the gear and the equipment to actually get you, a polished product, why not? Especially for the students, because it's such a challenge to even raise the money to get the gear. It's even a challenge to convince people to work on a set for free. So if we can cut out the problem of how am I going to get this much money for these lights, then we would love to, and that's what we kind of strive. In other markets, they do that, and we're trying to incorporate that more with grants and having that option to give the students a little bit more of a power in the filmmaking.
I want to add to that as well too, because William F. White's has been a major supporter of me personally since I started in this industry. So after going to film school, making my first short films in Toronto, again, having no money like any other filmmaker trying to get a project off the ground, Brian Dugan, who passed away, was an amazing mentor, and he worked at White's in Toronto. I don't know if you worked with him when you were
Yeah, I worked with Brian Dugan a few years, and
he's the best.
Great man.
Oh my God,
great man.
But that kind of support, who always, I'm like, Brian, I got $500 and that's it, or nothing, and everybody else is giving me grief there. They want X money. He's like, don't worry, I'll talk to them. But White's is full of Brian Dugans in their own right, that support up and coming talents and have been there since day one. And I've worked with one other company once. And that's because I didn't have control of it. But whenever I've had control, it's always been White's, and it'll always continue to be until they start charging too much.
That happens.
Yeah. So for any filmmakers that's here, they do invest a lot into, like, in the formal way, which is like internships or grants or that kind of stuff, but also in the informal way, which is, hey, can I borrow some equipment for the weekend? And
yeah, more than happy to help with that. And we're even pushing towards, where do we see the future of filmmaking? Well, one of the main aspects in this market is the training. We've noticed that we need to bring more education, and that's from us, even incorporating some courses to help really raise the education level of some of these technicians, generator operators that maybe haven't had a chance to go to the Toronto course. Well, we're going to open and operate it here, so we actually give that.
Well, can you actually speak to, because there is a course, or there's a weekend fun fair, so to speak,
that
happens here that White's is a major sponsor of.
Yeah, well, the symposium.
The symposium.
Yeah, we for the past 2 years, I don't believe this year IOTC set it up, because we really worked with IOTC 634 to set it up. But this year we didn't actually have a chance. But the past 2 years, there was a full, like a fun fair where you'd have different booths and different vendors, and we were showcasing that. So you'd have everyone coming by, and I mean, I would see a lot of people that didn't know about the film industry in Sudbury that were blown away by this, and that it goes a long way for us. And I think that we need to make our voice, and even through our education, I think that's going to help incorporate and make a stronger industry here. And that's what I think the main goal. Yes, the economy, but if we want to keep the industry going for years and years, we need to make it strong and really, if we're local filmmakers, fight and make sure you let your local politicians know that we want to make sure this continues. And we can only fight the fight for so long, but as long as we have politicians backing us, that goes a longer way.
So for anybody who needs equipment, you go find Josh. If you need some money, there's two ladies in there. just walk by them. But Josh hits on a really interesting point, though. which is the sustainability of the industry. And this is something that I want to get to momentarily. And so let's introduce our final, but equally amazing panelists here. Stand by, folks. Let's get this ready and queued up. I was so excited about this. Okay. There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, very good.
Look at that. All right. Don McCutcheon, director. Well known as an actor's director, Don McCutcheon's talent at elevating performance is rooted in the theater, while directing over 200 hours of television grants him the experience to creatively navigate the challenges of production. A team player, he's renowned for creating an atmosphere on set which his cast and crew members feel inspired to excel. Having shot extensively throughout Canada, the US, and Europe, his considerable body of work encompasses credits across multiple genres, including Beauty and the Beast, Corner Gas, The Pinkertons, Good Witch, The Listener, and the worldwide hit Murdoch Mysteries. Acknowledged by his peers for his distinct voice with nominations from the DGC Awards and the Canadian Comedy Awards, Don has been awarded the distinguished Don Haldane Award from the Directors Guild of Canada. Don is also currently shooting a series with David Anselmo in North Bay right now. So let's welcome Don.
Hey. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody, and thank you for coming. Yes, so 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, if somebody asked me if I'd be shooting in the North, I probably would have said, well, unless it's location specific, I don't think I would be. But I was wrong. As Mark says, I'm in pre-production on my second television movie for Hallmark. The first one we actually based out of North Bay, and this one we're basing out of Sudbury. And the interesting thing was, when I was approached to do that movie, it was a new pilot murder mystery movie for Hallmark. And so it was exciting. It was going to be, hopefully, if our ratings are good enough, we'll have some more of those movies to do. But I was taken aback a little bit because you're saying, yeah, it's North Bay, but the movie is entirely set in Manhattan. I said, okay, well, all right, let's not, Movie magic. Movie magic, exactly. So we sat down and with a lot of creative and innovative people, we actually shot, of the 3 weeks of shooting, we shot 2 weeks in North Bay, and we did Manhattan. Much of it was interiors, but we still did it. We built and dressed a major New York newspaper, art gallery, police precinct, and then we moved on and we did 2 days of exterior filming in downtown Toronto, and then 3 days in Hamilton. But the core, two-thirds of the movie was shot in North Bay for a Manhattan setting, and of course in this one, Sudbury will stand in for Chicago. And then we're off to Bracebridge and Killarney Mountain Lodge for the rest of it. So it's challenging, but as I say, there's some wonderfully creative and ingenious people that help work as a team to bring it together. And a lot of the credit. And the funny thing is about our crews, watching Mark's demo reel there was only one person, Chantel, who crossed over and worked on my production or working on my production. So that means, my point is, we had, probably as many people working on our movie that were from the North that weren't necessarily, because they were busy working on Mark's stuff. So we had other people. So what you saw there is fantastic, what's going on. But David Anselmo's company, Hideaway Pictures, is trying and successfully hiring as many on his productions. And I want to give David a bit of credit, because David is a Sudbury born and raised, and he left for a number of years and then came back. He has, in a typical Canadian fashion, turned a hockey rink into a television studio or film studio here in Sudbury. And we've mentioned infrastructure quite a bit. And the reason because is I think we go over that, and all of us talk about it, is because how important it is. Because I think initially, when productions started to come up here, there was reason for it. Might have been, you know, financial, but as you know, the infrastructure has grown. It's just made it. There's more reason. Yes, you know, it's a business. Let's face it. It is a business. So there are bottom lines have to be taken into account. But the more that you can, you know, the more of your infrastructure that's here, and producers can bring their projects here and not have to import, it helps their bottom line. You know, it just does. And so it's a win-win. It's a win for the North because there's employment opportunities, and it's a win for the producers because it increases their bottom line. It helps their bottom line. And like you say, more and more, we were having the discussion just prior, more and more people are coming back that had left to pursue either training or goals in Toronto and elsewhere, and they're saying, well, you know, we don't have to, we can come back. And that's a win, you know, for the North and for those individuals, because, you know, it's always nice to, you know, if sometimes you leave, you don't really want to leave, but you leave to pursue a goal, a career. But if as Mark was saying, you know, Mark had to leave St. Catharines, he had to come to Toronto because there was no film industry. There still isn't. But so Mark can't go home for his career, but, you know.
It was actually escaping an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, okay, well. Anyway, so, you know, it's a wonderful thing to see. And, you know, up until just recently, I'd literally filmed in every province across the country, you know, virtually coast to coast, and yet never had the opportunity to come up north. And I had wanted to, actually. I had really wanted to come up and film up here, and now I've given the opportunity. And, you know, even as challenging as it is to turn North Bay into Manhattan, I've enjoyed every second of it. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully now that David, you know, has given me the nod and given me the opportunity to direct some of his films, that we'll keep that relationship going. And so I have a feeling I will be, you know, seeing a lot of you around at some point. So, yeah. Anyway, that's sort of it from my perspective.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Don touched on something very interesting, which is the economic side of it, and the bottom line. And the bottom line can, you know, as a producer, that can mean several different things. For me, what that means is any business, no matter what you're doing, it needs to be a healthy business. That's at the end of the day, you can't be spending more than you have. Otherwise, you will go bankrupt. And that's all pretty self-explanatory. So the film and television business is no different. But the other benefit of it too, which I've been seeing over the years here, is the when I first started, there was very little of a crew that was local. And now that more and more is becoming local, what that actually does is not only does that put more money into the local economy, but it actually frees up money to put more money onto the screen and make a better product at the end of the day. And we've been able to see with Letterkenny, with Bad Blood, and hopefully soon with What Would Sal Do and some other projects, the quality of the productions actually going up, because we're spending less money on importing people and all the travel time to bring somebody up, put them in a hotel and accommodate them. You know, we'd rather be putting that money into people's pockets and putting it on the screen as well. And that to the crew and putting it into getting better cameras and better lenses and that kind of stuff, and make something that actually really does compete on a world stage, rather than just making content just for sake of making content that doesn't have any other life to it. There's got to be a business side to it, and that business side does translate into making a quality project that's constantly getting better. And there's only a finite amount of money, so really then it comes down to how are you spending that money. And I think, you know, as the business has been growing up here, we've been seeing more and more people moving to Northern Ontario and moving back to Northern Ontario, people who are from here. I mean, half the people in the video had left Northern Ontario, whether it's North Bay, Sudbury, or the Sioux, moved to Toronto, got training there, and then now have reached a time in their life And simultaneously, they're at a time in their life where, you know what, they don't need the city, they'd rather come back to where they're from. At the same time, they're being a workforce that can actually accommodate them, support them, something that they can come back to. So those two things happen at the same time. Gives them a great salary, great way of life, at the same time actually eases up on the budget a little bit, keeps the cost down, so you can put more money on the screen, make a great quality project that drives audiences, which makes more content, more stuff being produced here. So this is cyclical, self-fulfilling sustainability that can happen the more that if everybody's working together. I think, you know, it still happens a little bit, but in the early days when I was coming up, you know, everybody who even was local wanted to be put up in a hotel because the other people were being put up in a hotel. And it's like all that does is it kind of shoots yourself in the foot as a local employee or crew member. It's like, yeah, okay, you're going to get put up in a hotel, but now you're costing the production money rather than helping the production and helping, not investing in your own future and the future of the industry here too.
Well, and another good example that I talk about the money going back onto the screen. I need a crane, by the way, but I literally do. For the final scene in the movie, I want to do it's a Hallmark movie, so I'm going to do a big crane shot, big music swelling and all that kind of stuff. And normally, if we had to ship the crane up from Toronto, when I go to the producer, I say, I want a crane shot. Yeah, no, you're not doing a crane shot. Forget it. Now, we can do a crane shot because there's a crane, you know, you'll have the equipment. So it puts it back on the screen, and
so
that's
let me just
important.
walk through that exact example with technical actual numbers. So let's say, for argument's sake, what's a day rate on a crane?
Crane, depending.
Just let's say $2,000. Doesn't matter, mystical crane, whatever it is.
Let's go for a Fisher 23.
Yeah,
could be about 1,500 a day. Okay. But that's just for the crane.
Yeah.
I'm a little rough on the tech rates, but you would be paying 2-day travel for.
Okay, so just break that down exactly. It's 2-day travel for who?
For the tech to bring the crane down.
The technician, the
tech labor. The tech labor to bring the crane from Toronto. You need a day travel to wherever the location is.
Full day's pay. That's 8 to 10 hour minimum pay.
Hotel and per diem. You'll need to cover their hotel and per diem. There you will also be covering a travel day back. And the rates for a technician, besides what the union rates, it still could run you at least 10,000, if not more.
And that's why the producer would have to say to me, not that they would want to, but they would just say, we just can't afford.
So let's say that crane now is living here in Sudbury, and the technician is also living in Sudbury. That's costing the production $1,500. So it's just a simple example, and there's 1,000 examples like that. That the more people are living here and being local, the more money can be spent on actually making, like, how much money is not going on the screen making quality product. You know, imagine how much your car would cost if you had to, or how much your coffee would cost if all the baristas at Starbucks had to be traveled in, accommodated, and put up in a hotel all the time, right? So it's simple economics there, but just wanted to explain that for people who aren't familiar with.
And anything really, I mean, a light breaks down, and if you had to go all the way to Toronto, I always just think of it in gas terms. You know, if you're paying your tank of gas there, that's still money that's going away when we can have it in a 5-minute drive.
We had a generator issue on Crossford.
Oh, God, you did.
Yeah, and it was okay. We were fine. We got, but because Josh was here, that generator only had to travel from Sudbury to North Bay to get us back, you know, right the ship, so to speak, not from Toronto to North Bay. So that was, he had turned it around in record time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Don, so you're in an interesting spot because you're coming in as the industry is more mature than it was when I was coming up with Josh coming up.
Sure.
And, you know, I mean, truly been here for much longer within the industry here than either of us, as far as coming into that we've seen the growth of it. So how long you been up? Like, your first day on set was when?
Oh, well, not that long ago. It was where are we? We're in September, right? Somewhere back in August, middle of August, let's say.
Okay.
Was first day of shooting.
Okay. Now, so you explained that you were even before this, you always wanted to come and shoot up here. I'm going to say that that's not the answer I get from most directors and most producers and whatnot, because they simply don't know what's up here. And what they imagine is up in Northern Ontario is not, they imagine that it's a small town, and what's there to do? There's nothing to do, right? They don't really know what the opportunities are up here. So that's Don's a unicorn. So that's great.
Well, because I sort of just, when I watch the shows that are done up here, so I realize, whether it's your shows, Cardinal, Carter, all those shows, you go, well, obviously something's going on up there. These are good shows, you know what I mean? There's good creatives going on up there. So I just felt, well, why not?
It is a really interesting point too, because out of the Canadian original productions, the major series that are shooting in Canada right now, Cardinal, award-winning series that's produced in Sudbury and in North Bay and the surrounding area, that's going into season 3 or 4 now, I believe, production.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Carter, that was shot in North Bay. That's a major series for CTV. Letterkenny is shot up here. Bad Blood, CTV's flagship drama, that's shot up here. Amazing Race Canada. These are major shows. These are not fly-by-night productions. These are award-winning productions that are happening here. And this really started, those level of shows have been in the last 5 or 6 years or so that have started coming up. So now what's happening in the industry is there is a change of attitude. People are realizing there's a real business here.
Yeah.
It's a real sustainable industry.
Absolutely.
And that conversation, it's making my job a lot easier for directors now that there's an awareness of what's happening. But I think we can be doing a lot better to get that awareness out further, because everybody in this room knows all the perks and how amazing it is to be up here. But outside of this, it's a little bit of preaching to the choir. Outside of this, getting that word out to the rest of the industry and the rest of the world, that's the challenge. But even as it being Canada's best kept secret, it's succeeding pretty amazingly well.
Yeah.
So, is there a question? Yes.
You talk about the difference between shooting series and full-length productions and what full-length productions have been shot here. I mean, I only found out about this by watching Born in Blue. There's been a lot of others, but how does that change the employment dynamic versus the series and spin-off series?
Sure. I guess the question is, what's the difference economically and industry impact between feature films and television series?
Also talk about some of the ones that have been shot here.
Some of the features?
Yeah.
Well, some of the features, Born to be Blue, an award-winning feature film that's, who's the star of that? I am blank.
Ethan Hawke.
Thank you. Yeah. Ethan Hawke is the star of that won numerous awards. That was shot here. Cass and Dillon was my film that shot here as well. David Anselmo does a tremendous job at bringing feature after feature after feature, the Sudbury and Movies of the Week as well, which are television movies. And he has some series as well too. So what's important? I believe everything is necessary to have a sustainable, healthy business, because features there's a lot more of them than series, and the budget levels are they fluctuate quite a bit too, and the scheduling of them is they're perfect to fill in gaps in between seasons of series and whatnot. So as far as a series can go generally a little bit longer, and there's a returnability factor of it, that season 2, season 3, season 4. Features has a potential to with franchises, but it's not as prevalent in the independent world as returning series. So having that balance between television and features also does bring, generally speaking, it's not always the case, but a bit more of creative opportunity, because it's a little less it can be a little less of a factory type feeling than television sometimes. So television will shoot 90 minutes, or sorry, 1 hour of television in 7 to 9 days. Whereas a movie will shoot 90 minutes, 25 to 35 days. So you have more time to shoot less content in feature film. So it's a different creative muscle as well. And it's a different, the economic impact is similar, but the operations of it are slightly different. But as far as the economy goes, the impact's pretty much the same. It's just that TV's got the potential to return.
Although I think you would agree that if you're a crew member working on a television series, because as Mark says, it tends to go for a longer period and it has returnability. So it's almost, your guys on Letterkenny, they know, hey, great, we're back again for another season. We're back again for another season, because we all pretty much freelance. So it's partially all about what's the next job. And if you can count on a great series like Letterkenny that's going to have a life to it, it's going to keep going back, crews look for that. I mean, we all look for that. Producers and crews, doesn't matter who we are.
It is an industry where, as Don says, it is freelance and projects come and go. And having that ability, so we recently, about 6 months ago, announced a deal with Bell Media for Letterkenny. It's a 3-year production commitment, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
It's 42 episodes over the next 3 years. We're going to shoot 14 per year. And that kind of projection commitment is not really prevalent in this industry that much. But to see that kind of thing long-term and see, the crew knows that, the writers know, everybody knows what the schedule is essentially for the next 3 years, and know that, yeah, there's work. So it's even though like there's constantly work, there's always work. You want to, as a contract employee, you want to bet on the right horse kind of thing, that it is something you're spending time, you're making money, but you want to keep making money. You want to keep going, and to know that something has a chance of coming back again. It's just like if you have an opportunity, no matter what your industry is, if you're in construction and you have an opportunity to work with this foreman or this developer that has been working for 30 years and has contracts, hundreds of contracts, and then this brand new person that's never done this before, maybe hasn't had a great reputation. Well, which one are you going to bet on? Because you're going to work with this one, because the chances of continued work is much higher.
There was one fellow, I think it was your first AD, said that he'd moved back to Sudbury and now was through New Mexico, he was going to buy a house. The reason he can count, he knows he can pay his mortgage is because Mark got the commitment from Bell Media. So now he has the confidence to go ahead and put that down payment and buy that house. And that's huge.
That's actually a really good point, because that kind of thing, a major purchase like that, a major life decision, doesn't happen without some sort of security.
Yeah.
So looking ahead that there is work and that the industry is growing. I think Alex moved here not knowing how long he was going to stay here, and then seeing how much work there was.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to plant my roots down here now.
Sure.
So, any other questions?
Yes, sir. Amy mentioned that North Bay's industry is booming, like $20 million. And I noticed in the Sudbury figures, ours went down. Are some cities more friendly to the film industry than others?
I've only ever shot in Sudbury myself. I know North Bay and the Sioux have strong industries there as well. Would you know, Josh, like, where are you sending equipment mostly? Are you sending anywhere?
For us, it kind of jumps between Sudbury and North Bay. Quite a bit of the hallmarks we do help provide equipment to. We do find the majority in the past year have been shot in North Bay. Some of the larger TV shows, Cardinal was shot in North Bay, but we also do have other shows coming here. We had some features in Sudbury. So I do find it does have some balance. You might see the North Bay market fluctuate, but it's really year by year. I think you could see that those numbers change again to benefit Sudbury next year.
The cities help you financially at all?
The city of Sudbury? The city of Sudbury has other ways to support, and that comes. There used to be a small fund that helped productions, but now it's in other ways, like helping with permits and support things like providing police officers and there's a cost that comes with these things, but being able to close down roads and that kind of stuff is it's a huge help. Melly, what time? 3 hours? Okay. Okay, so I got a question for the, sorry, there's a question here? Yes.
There was mention of a tax credit earlier, so who was that from?
Province of Ontario. There's a few different tax credits. There is a provincial tax credit from the OMDC, and that's available for Canadian content productions as well as non-Canadian productions, that albeit at a smaller, lower rate. And then in addition to that, there's a federal tax credit. And both these tax credits go against Ontario and or Canadian labor. Yes?
What advice would you all have for a recent graduate looking for a first job in the industry?
Yeah, so someone's asking what advice for a recent graduate looking for a job in the industry? Is there a particular area that you're looking for?
I personally enjoy the writing part, but I can start anywhere.
Anybody want to start on this one?
Well, writing is tough to break into. I mean, there's I wouldn't call it a structure, but on the movies the TV movies that I'm doing in particular, they're all written in Los Angeles for the most part. Your rooms will be usually they're seasoned writers. Not to say that they wouldn't bring in newer writers. If you can.
She's turning white down.
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, just any. I would say, anywhere that's close to the writers. Maybe, if there's a writing room, if you're in the office, an entry level sort of position in the writing department is what's called the script coordinator. Not the script supervisor, which is a set job, but the script coordinator. And their position is usually it's pretty thankless, but they're sort of formatting scripts that if it's written in Final Cut, or not Final Cut, that's editing, Final Draft, and things like that, and just how sort of working with the writers. In fact, I've seen numerous, particularly on Murdoch Mysteries, I've seen many script coordinators be outside the writing room in one season. Inside the next season, they're inside the writing room as contributing writers to the show. And it happens because showrunners, which are usually the head writers, they usually like to bring in fresh blood into the room, and if you can indicate to them, they'll look at your reading, and they might even let you write part of a script or something like that. But there needs to be a writing room actually set up, like your writing rooms or things like that. But as close as you can get to the writers, it's the best. So maybe somewhere in the office would be a good start. But I mean, you're sitting in a great time right now, because there's a lot of opportunity. So
you should probably also read as many scripts as possible.
Yeah,
out there, and try to get yourself a mentor, even just introduce yourself to people in festivals and stuff, and meet people. That'll help you as well.
Yeah. Meeting people is always that's great. As many people as you can meet.
I'm going to add to this too, because I get this question a lot. So 2 points that are said here that are very valid is getting to know other writers and as many people in the industry as you can, and that can be by getting any job you can in the industry. If it's an office, it doesn't matter what the job. Getting connected one way or another gets you one step closer than not, right? Reading, as Shirley's saying, reading as many scripts and watching as many projects as possible to start to analyze. But I do think as a writer, it is a hard business. Everybody knows that. But as a writer, you actually have one advantage that nobody else has. I can't produce anything without 100 people. Don can't direct anything without 100 people. He's got no one to rent to unless there's a producer or a director asking for equipment. Writer, you don't need anybody. There's literally nobody telling you you can't do anything right now.
Yeah.
So there's nothing stopping you from writing. And the next step to that is write, and share it with as many people as you possibly can and get feedback. There's a misconception. A lot of people get concerned about if they share their stuff, it's going to get stolen. It's not. It's the off chance that something gets stolen. I mean, you actually don't hear that much of it. But when something's good, it's going to get shared, and people are going to start to open doors for you to meet other people. The amount of writers that I work with right now, that a year ago, we have a development room happening right now for a project of a writer who'd never written television before, and she wrote a pilot script, and it's amazing. And that ended up, she shared it with a friend who was a writer who she got to know somehow. I don't know how she got to know this writer, who shared it with her agent. Now that agent represents this writer, who then shared that script with us, and then we bought that script. So there's nothing stopping you from writing, and that's really what it's all about. So just keep writing as much as you can and share with everybody. Annoy people. Don't give them, let them get pissed off. It's okay. If it's good, it's going to
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm a high school teacher. I'm here with my principal today. We've been trying to be fairly forward thinking when it comes to future courses in our school. And hearing this has got us rather excited because we started the 3D animation course a couple of years ago. Is there some kind of skills that you could think of that we could start getting high school students trained in to lead to this kind of career in the future? Specific areas? Are there like more jobs right now in a specific area of the film industry that we could start looking at, or general?
For anybody in the back who didn't hear this question, this gentleman is here with his boss and under strict supervision. They teach at high school, and curious about programs that can benefit students now at the high school stage. Did anybody take media or television production or anything with cameras at all in high school?
I did, theater lighting and that, but
you did theater lighting in high school?
Yeah.
One media course, but we used the Sony Handycam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if this answers your question. I don't think it does, but I had 3 children that there was always kind of a career day, or I'm not sure exactly what it was called, but you would go in and speak about your profession and things like that. And so I did it probably 3 or I don't know how many times. But anyway, and the one thing I would point out to the students in the room, I would just literally say to somebody, "What's your interest?" And they'd say, "Oh, I don't know. What do you like? What are you good at?" "Oh, I'm good at math." "Oh, you could be an accountant in the film business." "What are you good at?" "Well, I like to draw." "You could be an art director." What do you? "Well, I like electricity." "You could be a gaffer." And I, by the time it was over, because I think sometimes the conception, particularly if somebody doesn't have the knowledge of the film industry and television industry, what all kinds of skills that it takes to make it, they count themselves out. And what I tried to point out to these high school students is, no, don't count yourself out. We all have a skill set, and many of those skill sets are required to make film and television. And so by the time I had finished, they were all going, okay, maybe I could get involved in the film industry. I know that doesn't probably answer your question specifically, but I always found that it was sort of interesting.
It does in many ways, because you're just looking at the connections between, everything that they take for the film industry.
Right.
But I think to get our youth excited about staying in Sudbury, that's the other thing. Sudbury's not used to talking about the film industry.
Right.
So we don't talk about it every day.
Sure.
Think about other careers.
Yeah.
So I think a role that we have as educators is that how do we bring this excitement to the schools with the programs? And I think, first of all, the kids are loving it. They're eating it up. But I think there's a lack of knowledge, and I think that's why we're here tonight as well, is that to truly understand what's available within their own community. What type of available positions can they get excited about or look forward to and set some goals. So I think that's what we're looking for too, as we build capacity. Like I can talk about our school, but I mean, even as a system leader, how do you build capacity within your own education system to feed this industry?
At Wingash, we actually have a pilot project this year with MSS, the Manitoba Secondary School, with a grade 12 student who's really interested in the film industry. who's going to take the Lab 1 course this year and graduate with it if she passes all the courses in that program.
Which is wonderful.
So we plan to expand that, yeah.
Yeah, it's similar, like those are the other things, other placements for students.
Well, I think, you know, when you first asked the question is like, is there any skills or anything like that? And I think that, in my personal opinion, which, whatever, I think that the real point of it, if I can speak from my own experiences in high school and whatnot, it's simply exposure. Just getting exposure to the industry, because a lot of people don't know, like me growing up, I only knew of a director and an actor. That's it. That's all that made up a film crew. Was it a director or you're an actor? I never knew what a producer was or producer does. I still don't. But you know, I didn't know there was a sound person or anything like that, right? So being given a camera in high school, just to literally go muck around with, and having an idea that there's actually jobs here. And I remember that moment where somebody pointed and just said, look at all these, at the credits, like you actually pay attention to credit, those are jobs. There's people actually doing that stuff. Yeah, so, you know, I'd be looking at things like with Letterkenny or with whatever else of opportunities for exposure, to get some young students out to come and just take a look and be a fly on the wall for a little bit when the opportunity does. Please do, because honestly, part of our goal is, you know, we can't do it for everything, but our goal is we're growing, and it is and all boats rise with the tide. It's like how do we find those opportunities to give that exposure to others that wouldn't have had that, to understand that there actually is this isn't, you know, it starts with the exposure and the inspiration. That, I mean, if you look at hockey players, like the hockey players didn't start out when they were a kid all about the training. No, it's just go out and have fun. And then they started to get good and found a passion, and then slowly comes in the training, slowly comes in the business side, slowly comes in the health aspects of it and all that kind of stuff. And it becomes the business of hockey. But starting out, it's just fun. So getting that exposure with the fun of it, just go make some stuff and whatever, it doesn't matter what it is.
Also going to the schools across Ontario and across Canada, actually, to do workshops in the schools or in the communities. So we've done over 150 schools. You know, one workshop that I did, there was 112 students that I workshopped, and we made 23 short films in 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's how. There's people out there that will come to your school to do workshops.
This question in the back.
Very quickly, Mark. I just wanted to say thank you to William F. White for looking at a map and discovering the subject is the center of the universe. Appreciate it. I remember in the 80s and 90s having to drive to Toronto Video Scope to go have baby cam and stuff like that. But my question is really about the acting side. The actor members up here. I feel that we're not getting the parts that are putting forth to us seem to be pretty small and piecemeal. I'm just wondering whether is that intentional, or are we going to get an opportunity to audition for some of the larger parts?
As I say, I've only had the experience of these two movies, and Hallmark, I'll be honest, Hallmark is very particular, and they have a set idea. I mean, usually even number one and number two on our call sheets, usually the two stars are from Los Angeles, and then they go down and then Toronto, and then as you say, usually it's the smaller roles. But, you know, and it's not really the producers, it's not the producers themselves, it's usually either the studio or the network that are driving that, the American studios and the networks, in my experience, which has been limited. But so you know, because I think for sure, I mean, a producer would love to find a good actor up here, actress up here to play the role. Why wouldn't they? But sometimes it's that pushback from the studio and the network that we're sort of, you know, we're not in a position to challenge it all that much. Having said that, you know, the audition process is not an expensive process necessarily. You know, we could try to encourage the Northern casting directors to audition for some roles and submit, because who knows? I mean, a good actor is a good actor. It doesn't matter where they're from. But there's just been some sort of, as I say, edict in a way coming out of, in this instance, the network, that they don't really want to, you know, they don't want to audition the bigger roles up here. But that's the American product. The Canadian product may be different.
So with Letterkenny and Bad Blood, we've actually proactively looked for local talent. In fact, we've now, in the video, Ashley St. Jean, she has her own casting company here that we support to help her start. And we've cast a significant amount of roles locally. Joel Gagne, who was in the video as well, he played a major role against Anthony LaPaglia in Bad Blood, a primetime series. We have Jay Burton, who owns Pepe Panini's downtown, who's him along with Joel Gagne. They become stars now with Letterkenny, and same with Camilla Cowell, who's in Letterkenny as well. These are major roles on big shows. So that is happening. I do think, I want to caution that kind of perception though, because this industry, for it to be sustainable and to grow here, it needs, for lack of a better word, some people need to check themselves. There can sometimes be, whether it's on camera or behind camera, with any kind of industry that suddenly grows quickly, a sense of entitledness that, why am I not getting that big role? Versus the person that's worked 15 years of their life volunteering, interning, trying to do small bit parts to finally get their break when their experience caught up to them. For sustainability, you want to peak at the right time. You don't want to get that opportunity to do a big role when you're not ready for it, because all it's going to do is make you look bad, not get the next job, make the whole production look bad, and then suddenly it's like not going to shoot up in Sudbury. The talent's not there. So it is a balance that needs to be monitored by everybody involved in the industry, and that's not just acting. That's any position. People will rise at the right time with the right support and the right experience, and trust the system that's how you get promoted. Think of any other job. If somebody gets promoted way too quickly, that's disaster zone. So there's a certain amount of, because this industry can feel like, oh, anybody can do that. Yes, to a certain degree, anybody can do X, Y, and Z. But you notice when there's a difference between excellent quality and experience and somebody that just got a shot that didn't earn that shot to work themselves into that. And that's something I think everybody's got to be very cautious of, to really properly sustain and build properly and with proper growth, and not shooting themselves in the foot for a short-term gain. So speaking of sustainability, are we short on time? Is there any other questions?
One.
Yes.
Just wondering, one type of production that you haven't spoken about is commercials, the little 30-second features.
Commercials.
Yeah.
Oh, what's up with the commercial industry? That's a very good question. I actually don't know what that's like up here. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Is that something that's really centered just around having the agencies in place locally in order to get the...
Yeah. In my personal experience, the only thing that's similar. Gotta go.
So what is it you're saying exactly? No, I'm talking about the lights. Is that
okay.
Oh, there we go. I didn't take it personally. Yeah.
So the only thing that's similar in my experience about those industries, from commercials to television and movies, is that they use a camera and there's a director and there's somebody writing it. But otherwise, in my experience, it's an entirely different industry. You might rent gear to commercials.
Yeah, mainly for a commercial because it's more of a quick operation. They'll usually try to rent a package truck, with the Jenny, everything kind of loaded on so you can run, gun, shoot, and then get back there.
Yeah.
We just haven't had many. Commercial market here just hasn't thrived.
For whatever reason, even in directing, I've never shot a commercial ever, and there's not that many commercial directors that cross into the scripted genre. So it's kind of a different world. So it's hard to say why not. I don't know.
You shot commercials that we did for EPTN. Yeah, very with no budget though. Oh yes, yeah. Some commercials are what, $1 million?
Oh,
Yeah, it could go really high. But I'll tell you a story. One time I was auditioning for a film that I really wanted a part in. And I thought, I'm from up here, I'm sure they're not gonna see me. So I went all the way to Toronto and auditioned for the part. And the director told me, you can't fool me, you're not Aboriginal, you're Black Irish. So I didn't get the part.
All right, I guess there's no other questions. So thank you to our panelists. Thanks everybody for coming out, and thanks for the great questions.